Should we start?
Right, it's going.
Great. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. So this is the final show and tell for the local government, local digital collaboration discovery. So we've got a lot to cover. This is actually, believe it or not, is a condensed version of an even bigger deck. So this is kind of like the story of the discovery, what we did, what we learned, the opportunities and solutions that we came up with, and some of the recommendations we're making for Alpha. We can kind of whiz through this in the time that we have. So, in terms of the team, this is the team. I'm not on here, don't worry about that. I'm Niall. I'm this person, but this week she's not here anymore, it's fine. Everyone else is still here. So, we have been doing a discovery on improving digital collaboration between local authorities. So it's been a 3-sprint discovery, started on the 5th of June, and today's the final day. And this is the hypothesis. So by improving local authorities' awareness of projects and their ability to collaborate, it will result in cost and time savings and better public services. So that's the hypothesis that we've been working to. So the kind of overarching questions that we've been thinking about are: how can MHCLG support local authorities to ensure good outcomes? What the barriers are to collaboration in local authorities, and what kind of good and successful collaboration looks like, and how does it sort of take place and happen. An important point to make is that we've been considering the wider landscape. It's a big, broad area. So we haven't just been focusing exclusively on pipeline. A lot of the research didn't touch pipeline at all, so it's kind of like a broad view rather than just on pipeline. And this is the why, right? So a strategic outcome for MHCLG is to help transform services and support local government efficiencies. So delivering savings, encouraging reuse and sharing knowledge, growing digital capability, and improving diversity and competition in the market. So that's a little bit of context around the work that we've been doing. Marianne is now going to talk about what we did. Marianne, just tell me to skip when you're ready.
Hi guys, I'm talking through the laptop here, in case you're wondering. So yeah, I'll just talk quickly about the sort of things we did. So what you're seeing here is a mapping out of stakeholders. So at the start of the discovery, the team basically mapped out the various stakeholders, and we assigned them into different groups based on how they might like to be involved or contacted. So we had governance and decisions, engage and consult, keep informed, and keep aware. And so these kind of stakeholders were people like Local Gov Digital, LGA, Socotum, Lottie, GDS. You can see there's a whole load of different people that we considered on there, organisations that we considered on there. But we focused mainly on the ones within the governance, engage, and the keep informed areas, just because we had to create scope somewhere. So if you go to the next slide. This is a quick snapshot of one of our Miro boards. We had quite a few on this project because we had quite a lot going on, but this one was from our desk research, where we looked at existing research that had already been done, whether it was from MHCLG or from elsewhere. So there was quite a few blogs and reports from Pipeline itself, talking about what user needs it was meeting and what might need to be changed later. There was lots of different articles around collaboration, and that really gave us a foundation to form our research questions and what we were going to go and find out from people. Go to the next slide. This is a snapshot of who we spoke to from the users. So in total we interviewed 17 different local authorities, so there tended to be more than one person would attend these interview sessions, and a couple of those sessions were actually workshops with about 4 to 6 people. So of those 17, 8 of those sessions were already conducted by MHCLG before we started the discovery. So we did a further 9 interviews with 9 different local authorities. So one thing to note here is we do have a relatively even spread across the different types of local authorities. It's slightly too focused on people who have signed up to local digital declaration, which therefore means that we sort of highlighted that we'd like to speak to more people who are a little bit less engaged, but they're much harder to get to. And the other area that was a bit of a shame, really. We did have more booked in for the north of England, but they got cancelled and couldn't be rearranged within the discovery time. So we should have had 8 in the north of England, which are the white little stars you can see there. That's where they would have been. But you can see it was a relatively even spread across the country. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. Great. So this is a map of the 8 government and non-government organisations. So those I already mentioned, those like local gov, digital, LGA, Soccertim, Lottie, BDS. And it's the diagram that basically describes the landscape. So they're a mixture of policymakers, influencers and stimulators, and collaborators themselves. The green is highlighting where we feel we spoke to these people, and the grey is areas that we didn't manage to speak to certain people. So you'll see in the collaborator space, it's people with a lower appetite for change or a lower digital maturity. And there are people like public health, the NHS, third sector that we didn't speak to. But yeah, I think it's quite a nice spread of those that we did manage to speak to. Next slide. So we centred all our research on 3 main areas. I'd say, what is collaboration within a local authority? So we asked people to share their experiences of collaboration. We discussed different types of collaboration that we'd identified through our desk research, which Daria is going to talk about later. And we investigated a bit more of the tools and the different platforms that supported them with the different types of collaboration for them. So we didn't go in with established ideas of what collaboration was. We really wanted to find out from them what they thought it was, and also the value that they thought different types would hold as well. Go to the next slide. Part of that was asking them to think about examples, whether it was good or bad examples, that they could share about collaboration. And if they couldn't actually share any examples of collaboration, that was interesting in itself. So then we would focus on why they thought collaboration wasn't happening, what were the blockers to doing collaboration. There's the next slide. So drivers and anchors. So this was really interesting, and we saw a lot of themes and trends come out around what was really driving collaboration and what would hold it back, so the anchors. And that came out from people talking about these examples or when they were discussing the sorts of collaboration that they could get involved in. So it was quite easy for people to bring this sort of thing up. Very interesting. Okay, I think I'm handing over to Daria now.
So just to explore some of the things that we learned, we mentioned before about the 4 key types of collaboration that we found. So this was networking, knowledge sharing, resource sharing, and delivery. And within those, so sometimes the problem comes first and people look for someone to collaborate with on the problem, or sometimes eager innovators just buddy up and find problems that they can work on together. But either way, the relationships are always the key thing that underpins those. And there are also more formal ways of collaborating through active knowledge sharing of best practice, or through resource sharing of skills and project outputs such as code. But the hardest form of collaboration that we saw was actually the joint delivery, and that's also where the least support exists, which I'll be exploring later. And in interviews, we had people talk through examples of collaboration. Oh, this might be someone else's slide.
Oh, yeah, that one is mine.
That's yours. Go for it.
I'm sorry. No, that's all right. Yeah, so I was just going to go, we've kind of gone over some of these things in the last couple of show and tells, but just to go over sort of the main things that are holding back collaboration or that are driving it forward. So like Marianne said, we found some themes around that. So the one thing that came up in quite a number of interviews was culture, and how the kind of culture of a council, if it's more traditional, might lead to kind of a bit of a risk-averse attitude towards collaboration, whereas those councils that have already sort of moved over to kind of agile ways of working are therefore more naturally able to think about collaboration. Politics is also an anchor, so for some councils it's really challenging for them to be able to work with a council that has a different political colour. And on the other side of it though, like councils talked about when they got a new chief exec in who brought with them agile ways of working and new ways of thinking that allowed them to use kind of collaborative tools, but also kind of empowered teams to be able to make decisions on collaboration as well, sort of removing some of that red tape. Technology, so people talked about always having to get aligned to do collaboration together, and therefore like it was very difficult for them to make that happen, which therefore makes collaboration difficult to happen. On the other side of it, those councils that had access to things and that were able to use Slack and Trello and Pipeline and WhatsApp, they sort of already had the kind of seeds there that would enable them to be able to collaborate. Governance. Some councils have really quite complex layers of permission to be able to do things, which means that means there's more layers to sort of say no or to have to ask. And also, I think this can lead to sort of councils trying to create some consistency for their own council, but then that might mean that other ideas can't be adopted so easily. On the other side of that, there was a real call for clear guidance and help with how to collaborate and best practice that they might be able to show to people in the council. Shared vision came up as one of the key ingredients for successful collaboration. So coming together, making sure you agree goals and outcomes would be a real driver for collaboration. I think Daria just said it as well, pre-existing relationships seems to be where collaboration commonly starts. And these relationships continue when people move on to other councils, and it kind of enables collaboration in that way. On the other side of that, the anchor, the people don't quite know where to go beyond their existing networks. There's work for us to do there. There's no doubt that budget for travel is a challenge, and although there's these collaborative tools that enable people to work online together, I think there's still a call from people that to meet in person means a lot, and it is important as part of a collaborative project. And so where we found collaboration most common was with people close by to them. And they were also the people who they had those pre-existing networks with. There was a lack of sort of knowledge about how to go about starting collaboration, or even just how to align goals, how to persuade other people. So something to think about for us. On the other side of that, the teams that were already sort of in multidisciplinary teams working across the council also had more sort of opportunity to think about collaboration and look outside. And there's challenge for people in developing spec to go for procurement, and this can mean that they have a big scope for a project, and might lead to a long contract and a big procurement, which means that there's little room then for other councils to be involved in that. Another aspect of where scope was an anchor was sort of this having how to get councils to align together to agree. It's like kind of the same as the vision. So one of the drivers of collaboration would be that if councils could work together to solve common problems rather than working on outcomes. And that's your drivers and anchors in a nutshell. I'll hand it over to Maria.
Yep. Right, so then after we had done our interviews with stakeholders and users, we then mapped out the local authorities or the users onto a matrix based on what they want to achieve and how engaged they were as an organisation or an individual. So if you go to the next slide, it should show a grid. So you can see it's find and learn over on the left and do over on the right, with more engaged at the top and less engaged at the bottom. And the reason we like to map things out this way is it helps you to very clearly define what people need from you based on the extremes. So you've got things like help me find content that's relevant to me so that I can be more proactive, support me with how to collaborate effectively based on best practice and lessons learned, help me and my organisation commit to collaboration, and show me evidence of collaboration so that I can see tangible value. So in a nutshell, these were the four extremes of needs that people had, and in between all of these there'll be variations, but if we can satisfy all of those, we should be able to satisfy everything in between. So if you go to the next slide, we also mapped out our influencers and stimulators that I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the different groups that we were talking to. So this was mainly based on stakeholders, but it could also include some of the more engaged users as well who want to influence and stimulate what's going on in the communities. So this was grouped by different types of what they needed, so data, knowledge and buy-in, and there are different questions that they need answered. So things like, what projects are local authorities running when a contract's ending, so that you might be able to join up with someone else at the same time and have better power. How can they drive and maintain engagement? Questions like that. So there's sort of themes to that, and the themes were also defined by whether they were looking for opportunities or whether they were trying to support action. So there's really a sort of find and a do thing happening to what people were wanting to know. So I think I'm going to hand back to Daria now on the next slide.
So similarly to some of the user insights, the stakeholder research showed some similar things. So the political will and leadership affected was actually a huge factor in why projects that seem destined for success might fail, as the changing leadership and political priorities, the project interest wanes and then things sort of fizzle out. As I said before, and as Linda mentioned again, the relationships are absolutely critical to project success. And so as a result, that succession planning was mentioned often in our research as a reason of why things failed. Local authorities already do collaborate at various levels, some at small scales and some at larger, so things with like shared services. And the tools that exist have varying levels of adoption, and the landscape's a little bit confusing and is in need of some like coordination activity. So there's a perception that collaboration is something for digital teams to do. There's a bit of a divide between digital and non-digital people and service teams, and these non-digital people are also harder to reach and have less awareness of the tools that exist. Some local authorities find that central government is always contacting them through various groups. So there's DWP, HMRC, MHCLG, GDS, CCS, all contacting them at the same time. And some of our stakeholders mentioned that as an opportunity for MHCLG, potentially to become a coordinator or orchestrator in how central government interacts with local. Pipeline's relatively low levels of adoption could be down to many things. So there was the things we heard from stakeholder research was a lack of clarity as to what should go on there. So there's perception that that's for finished projects that are like as a showcase almost. That there should be a more ongoing sort of relationship with Pipeline rather than just a static snapshot of projects as they stand at the point at which they're entered on the system, and that it's not already an integral part of business processes, so that there's no incentive for people to return to it. However, although the service doesn't fully meet people's needs or expectations, there's also little appetite for another product in this already complex space. So I'm just going to hand over to Sam.
So we identified some areas where users benefit from support. So this is from the user side, so this is the user expectation. So one of them was to push the message of collaboration. So it's quite difficult to identify concrete examples of where collaboration has had positive impact on public services. There's also an expectation that we need to make it easier for people to find relevant examples of similar problems to the ones that they're interested in, so that they can become more proactive. Also in terms of establishing effective relationships, some people don't know where to look to find others to connect with outside of their personal relationships or their personal networks. So MHCLG could help partner up over common services, problems, issues that they're having, ways of working, to support aspects of collaboration and also to provide guidance and training. So some councils may be less digitally mature than other local authorities. So we had reports from senior management feeling unsure about different tools that they use that's required for successful collaboration. So if we maybe gave them the benefit of training and guidance in terms of like user-centered design and agile working, then that would help them. And also facilitating sharing of resources. So may it be budgets, skills, time, knowledge, just helping people share their problems, so it's easier for them to get involved, and also removing blockers to collaboration. So for example, if that's like lack of budget for user research, developers and senior buy-in, then we can help in regards to that. So we also have some expectations of MHCLG from stakeholders. and these are in regards to identifying collaboration opportunities. So if regional and central government were to spot opportunities for collaboration, where there's sufficient data and information available to provide those opportunities and those initiatives, and Lottie's is currently adopting this approach. Secondly, fertilising collaboration opportunities. So where opportunities to collaborate are identified, local authorities can lack the resources and capabilities to capitalise on those initiatives or those opportunities. So if we were to fund them through the local digital funds, so capability building also, and providing guidance into how to collaborate, then that would kind of be a source to delivering successful outcomes. Relationship brokering and alignment, so providing a common space for authorities to come together and act as an advisor, political friend, a referee, as a potential for collaboration, and that's something that I think we need to explore on a little bit more. Problem definition and articulation. So projects are often named after technology being developed, which can be quite hard for some councils to adopt. So coming together to deliver a project to solve a problem can be made easier when problems or outcomes are expressed in a common way that councils understand. And also building capability. So collaboration between partners are also strained, and it can be pulled down by the weaker partners. So basically trying to improve capability across local authorities and targeting high value areas is another area for exploration, and then coordination. So MHCLG could better coordinate the activities, such as sharing knowledge and resource sharing in that aspect, in order to help collaboration amongst stakeholders. So I'm just going to talk about the opportunities and solutions that we came up with. So this is a solution, opportunity solution mapping workshop that we did last week. So this is an opportunity solution tree that we did. So this was an iterative design process that kind of helped us turn findings into insights and then solutions to explore further. So the aim of the workshop was to outline the goals that MHCLG want to achieve, so those are the post-its in blue, and then we have the opportunities, so we ensured that we had a common understanding of the insights that came out of user research, which are the post-its in green, and then we explored potential solutions linked to desired outcomes that are grounded by user research. Those are the post-its in red. And then we also linked to the type of experiments and hypotheses that could come out of these solutions, which are the post-its in blue, in yellow. So these are the solutions, the 7 solutions that we came up with. Based on user insights, we actually voted on the most viable solutions that would show a strong direction towards the user needs and would provide the most value. We then merged the similar ideas and created themes based on the solutions identified for alpha and improvements needed. So we have the collaboration tool, which will help LA's local authorities to learn how to collaborate, so providing guidance, support, toolkits to provide help their services. And then we also have a type of matchmaker service, so helping LAs find others to work with who are aligned across a range of criteria, so for example types of problems and projects. We also have more carrots, so encouraging collaboration by giving local authorities an incentive. We also have storytelling, so showing the value of collaboration through successes, displaying successes and failures, and talking about the benefits of collaboration. We also have a boot camp, collaboration boot camp, so this is in regards to training and guidance for those at the top. And then we have the collaboration audit, so basically rating different tools and platforms across the board and fueling the mindset of people at the top and people working within Agile. So this is a action priority matrix. We completed an action priority matrix and scored solutions based firstly on their impact and secondly on the effort needed to complete them. We identified 2 high impacts and low effort activities for alpha, so which is to reorientate and iterate pipeline and to make a collaboration toolkit. So in regards to the other solutions, these are ideas still worth exploration. However, we found that the top two, so orientation and iterative pipeline and making the collaboration toolkit, we found them more feasible in terms of what is achievable going forward in alpha.
So I'm going to zip through because I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I just wanted to show you how the tools that already existed on this landscape, as we showed you before, mapped heavily towards the networking and knowledge sharing section. And the concepts that we came up with that were on that prioritization matrix Sam just showed you lean more heavily towards the resource sharing and delivery side. And the two that we've chosen to focus on are particularly supporting these resource sharing and delivery elements that will help councils find the right opportunities for collaboration and more targeted support for resource sharing and delivery. And these two things are really important in the way they work together. They rely on each other to succeed. So we kind of came up with this virtuous circle that people need to understand how to do collaboration, but also find the right opportunities for it and make sure that the people and projects they choose are setting them up to succeed.
So we're very nearly done. So kind of just to play back what we've just been saying, so the kind of two equal recommendations that we're making is that one of the really valuable things to do would be to develop a collaboration toolkit. So kind of help people to know what good looks like, how to avoid common blockers, how to reuse things, tools and guidance that like can really add value to collaboration. And then the second thing is about reorientating and iterating pipeline. So pipeline is an existing platform, so we don't want to like reinvent the wheel. I think what we mean by kind of reorientate is to sort of try and really drive collaboration earlier on in the process. So the thing that we were saying about finding that it kind of lives as a place where projects go, but could it be kind of reorientated so that it's a place where problems are articulated, and that's a way of kind of matching people together and stimulating collaboration earlier on in the process. So you're kind of, before someone's taking those steps to kind of decide what path they're going to go down, they're already starting that collaboration earlier on in the process. So that could be things like using notifications to let people know about problems that have been suggested, or it could be kind of like a view or keep an eye on certain particular things that are in the pipeline, so you can kind of watch what's happening with stuff. So those are the recommendations we're going to make. Marianne's very quickly going to talk about this.
Yes, so the next thing we'd like to do before we get stuck into alpha is actually have a collaborative workshop with people from local authorities. So the plan is to send out an invite very, very soon to the people we spoke to, people who didn't manage to speak to but who said they would have to be contacted again, and again out into our networks. We're going to invite them to a one-day workshop where we'll run through some of these ideas and make sure that what we're doing is realistic and practical for them. So when this is happening is TBC. As part of the survey I'm asking them to do is to actually find the best date for most people. We're hoping to get 15 to 20 people per workshop, and these workshops will happen at the same time on the same day. So if you would like to get involved, or you know someone who might, this is the link that you can share with them to go through the survey so that I can capture their details and get it arranged. So thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, cool. All right. So, how to measure and monitor the outputs? I don't think we've got far yet. Yeah, it's a good question, particularly if we're going to, as soon as you get into iterating the pipeline. I think we talked about with the toolkit kind of using that with like funded projects, because it's kind of an opportunity that's already there and exists, so it's kind of something that you wouldn't have to invest too much time to find those things as brand new things. But yeah, then with pipeline, obviously, you want to make sure that you're measuring things that you do to it, so you can actually validate that it's working. So I think there's a lot of stuff that's been done to pipeline, but proving that it's successful is hard.
some qualitative research probably around some of the hypotheses that we had on those final 2 slides that we now presented.
I think it's probably worth saying as well, you could see in this thing, these are all potential things that could be done. So there's a little bit of duplication here, but there's a lot of stuff to be done. So we're going to hand all these things over, and some of them are more defined, some of them are less defined, but there's certainly like a range of things that could be done. Some of them are probably like one day's work, some of them are like really big projects that are like scoping out and figuring out, and it's kind of where we are right now, and what we think is the most valuable things to take forward in the immediate future are those two things kind of in parallel. Cool. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you.